My wife cheated with my best friend, then manipulated me into signing over $250, $0 in our house during the divorce, only to find out she's been secretly draining our account for years. Now I'm fighting in court to get my money back. I never thought I'd be the guy writing a story like this, but here I am. It all started with little signs that I brushed off, like her being more distant or secretive about her phone. But the real shocker came when I found out my wife, Lisa, was cheating on me with my best friend, Jake. Yeah, I know, what a kick in the teeth. It's the kind of betrayal that hits you like a freight train, and once it hits, everything else in your life starts to crumble. We'd been married for about 7 years. I thought we were solid, you know. We had a decent life, good jobs, a nice house, and a kid on the way. Lisa had always been a bit bitchy, but I figured that was just her personality. She was the kind of woman who could be sweet one second and a total bitch the next, but I loved her. Or at least I thought I did. People change, I guess. But I never expected her to cheat on me, especially not with Jake, my best friend since college. The signs started subtly. She'd been acting weird about her phone, always keeping it close, hiding texts, deleting things. I noticed her getting more defensive when I asked about her day or her plans. Small things, but enough to make me suspicious. Then she started coming home late, claiming she was working late or meeting with friends. I'd ask her to be honest and she'd roll her eyes, call me paranoid, and say I was imagining things. But I knew something was off. One night I came home early from work because I wasn't feeling well. I decided to check our bank account before I crashed on the couch. That's when I saw it, an unusual transfer of $10, $0 to an unknown account. It was labeled personal expenses, but I knew Lisa. She didn't spend that kind of money on herself. My stomach sank. I immediately thought she was hiding something, but I didn't jump to conclusions. I decided to dig deeper. The next day, I started paying attention to her habits. More closely, I noticed her phone ringing at odd hours and she'd quickly silence it and put it away. One evening, I followed her when she said she was meeting a friend. Instead of going to the bar, she went to a hotel. My heart pounded as I watched her walk in with Jake. They didn't see me, but I saw enough. They kissed in the lobby and I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I didn't confront her right away. I needed proof, something concrete. So I installed a few discrete apps on her phone. Over the next week, I collected messages, photos, and call logs. It was worse than I imagined. She'd been sneaking around for months and the affair was deep. They'd been meeting in secret, lying to me about everything. She even told Jake she hated the marriage, that I was too dull, too predictable. It was like discovering a betrayal on a scale I never thought possible. I remember feeling numb, like I was watching my life fall apart in slow motion. The betrayal wasn't just about the affair, it was about the lies, the manipulation. She lied to me about everything, about her whereabouts, her feelings, even about the future we'd planned. I felt so stupid for trusting her, for thinking we had something real. Instead, she had been cheating, lying, and secretly draining our bank accounts for years. That's when I realized I couldn't stay silent anymore. I had to confront her. But I didn't want to do it the usual way, playing the angry husband, yelling at her. I knew I had to be strategic. I wanted her to admit everything herself, to see her squirm. I set up a meeting at our house one evening, telling her I wanted to talk about us and the future. She looked smug, like she thought she had the upper hand. That's when I dropped the bomb. I told her I knew everything about the affair, the money, the lies. Her face twisted into a sneer and she started spinning her usual lies, saying I was paranoid, that she loved me, that Jake was just a friend she was helping out, and that I was overreacting. But I wasn't buying it. I could see her eyes darting, the way she hesitated before lying. It was all there. The woman who once claimed she loved me was now a stranger, manipulative and cruel. I felt a mixture of anger, heartbreak, and disgust. How could someone I loved do this to me? How could she lie so easily? The betrayal hurt more than I can put into words. It was like my entire world was crashing down around me and I was left standing there, trying to hold it all together while she smeared me with her lies. From that moment on, everything changed. The trust was gone, replaced by a bitter resolve. I knew I had to do something about the money, our house, our savings. That's when the real game started. I wasn't just going to let her walk away with everything. especially not after what she did. I had to fight, and I was about to find out just how deep her manipulation went. That's a story for another time, but suffice it to say, I was already planning my revenge. The confrontation was just the beginning. After I laid everything out, proof, her lies, the affair, I expected her to break down, maybe plead, or at least show some remorse. Instead, Lisa's reaction was pure arrogance. She scoffed, rolled her eyes, and told me I was overreacting. Said I was paranoid, insecure, and that I was making everything up in my head. She even had the nerve to call me crazy, which made my blood boil. She kept insisting nothing was going on, that I was just jealous and insecure. She threw in some classic lines like Jake is just a friend or you're imagining things. But I knew better. I had the messages, the hotel receipts, the bank transfers. I had everything. Still, her words stung. It's like she was trying to gaslight me, make me doubt my own instincts. I felt a mix of rage and despair. How could she lie so effortlessly? How could she turn everything around and make me doubt myself? That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything. The signs I ignored, her sneaky behaviors, the moments I thought were just her being stressed or busy. All of it now made sense. She had been manipulating me for months, maybe even over a year. And Jake, my supposed best friend, was right there in the middle of it, laughing behind my back. The betrayal cut deep, and I started feeling this burning need for justice, revenge even. Over the next few days, I threw myself into digging deeper into her financials. I needed to see how much she'd drained from our accounts. Turns out I wasn't just paranoid. Over the last 3 years, she'd siphoned off over $100, $0. I found hidden accounts, transfers to offshore accounts, even some cash withdrawals I didn't know about. It was like she'd been planning this for a long time, and I had to act fast. I hired a lawyer, one who specialized in financial crimes and divorce law. I wanted to protect what was mine, especially the house. It was our biggest asset, and I wasn't about to let her take it all while she played innocent. I also started gathering evidence for the court, screenshots of bank statements, her texts with Jake, hotel receipts, everything. I knew that if this went to court, I had to have irrefutable proof of her betrayal and financial misconduct. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up her act, pretending she was the innocent victim. She'd cry, say I was ruining everything, accuse me of being paranoid. She'd manipulate the situation, trying to turn our friends and family against me. I could see her spinning her web, but I refused to fall for it. I'd been betrayed enough. Now I was going to fight back, not just for the house or the money, but for my dignity. One day she accused me of spying on her and called me crazy again, claiming I was stalking her. I just looked at her and said, "You're the one who's been sneaking around behind my back. Don't try to turn this around on me." That was the moment I realized how deep her lies ran. She'd become someone I didn't even recognize. It was like she was a different person, and I was left trying to pick up the pieces. I also started talking to a private investigator just to confirm what I already knew. The evidence was overwhelming. She'd been living a double life, draining our savings, lying about her whereabouts, and cheating with Jake. I had no choice but to prepare for a messy divorce and a fight over the money. I knew she'd try to manipulate the system, so I had to be smarter, more prepared. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and angry. It was hard to look at her without feeling disgusted. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I didn't see her slipping away from me. But I also knew I couldn't let her win, not after everything. I had to stand my ground, fight for what's right, and get justice for myself. That's when I decided I wasn't going to just let her manipulate her way out of this. I was going to expose her in court, fight for the money she stole, and make sure she paid for her lies. I knew it wouldn't be easy. She was a master manipulator, and she'd do everything she could to keep her secrets hidden. But I was ready. I had the evidence, the legal team, and a burning desire to take back what she tried to steal from me. And honestly, I'm still in the middle of this mess. It's not over yet, but I can tell you this. Once you find out your wife's been cheating on you with your best friend and draining your bank account for years, everything changes. You don't just lose trust, you lose part of yourself. And now I'm fighting not just for the money, but for my dignity, my sanity, and my future. After I gathered all the evidence and hired a good lawyer, I realized that this wasn't just about catching her in the act anymore. It was about taking control and fighting for what I deserved. The first step was to file for divorce, but I made it clear that I wasn't going to settle for a quick, messy split where she walks away with my house and savings. No way. She had already manipulated me once into signing over part of the house during the divorce. She played the victim, cried, and lied about everything. I wasn't going to let her do that again. The divorce process was brutal. Lisa tried every trick in the book to stall and manipulate the situation. She claimed she was the victim, that I was ruining her life, and that she deserved a fair share because she worked hard to help build our life. The truth was, she was draining our accounts for years, stealing from us while pretending to be the perfect wife. She'd even lied about her expenses, claiming she needed money for personal reasons. Meanwhile, I was digging into her finances, uncovering hidden accounts, offshore transfers, and cash withdrawals. It was clear she'd been planning her escape for a long time. During the court hearings, I presented all my evidence: bank statements, texts, hotel receipts, and witness testimonies from friends who saw her sneaking around. Lisa, of course, denied everything, claiming I was just jealous and paranoid. She painted herself as the victim, saying I was controlling, that she never cheated, and that I was trying to ruin her reputation. I couldn't believe her audacity. She was spinning tailies so fast, I wondered if she even believed her own lies. But I had the proof, and the judge saw through her act. The most frustrating part was when she manipulated the legal system to her advantage. She claimed that I was abusive and that I had no right to question her finances. She even hired her own lawyer to push for full custody of our kid, trying to turn the court against me. I was furious. I knew she was just trying to distract from her betrayal and the fact that she'd been draining our accounts for years. I was fighting not only for the house and money, but also for my relationship with my child. Meanwhile, she kept up her act, crying and acting like the innocent victim. She'd call me heartless and accuse me of ruining her life. I felt like I was stuck in some twisted nightmare. She was the one who cheated, manipulated, and stole from us, but somehow she was the victim. I couldn't understand how someone could be so selfish and manipulative. It made me question everything I thought I knew about her. I also started to realize how deep her lies went. She had been siphoning money from our joint accounts, setting up secret offshore accounts, and even borrowing money from friends behind my back. It was like she'd been planning her escape for years. That's when I knew I had to push even harder. I hired forensic accountants to trace every penny she'd stolen. The numbers were staggering: over $150, $0 gone, just in the last 3 years. I felt sick knowing she'd been living a double life, lying to me every step of the way. At the same time, I couldn't help but feel betrayed on a personal level. I'd loved her, trusted her. We built a life together, and I thought she loved me back. But it turned out she was just using me, manipulating me, and secretly draining our savings. That realization hit hard. I felt like I'd been blind, and now I had to pick up the pieces of a life I thought was stable. The house, the savings, my trust, all of it was in jeopardy. The worst part was watching her lie through her teeth in court, pretending she was innocent. She'd give these dramatic speeches about how she needed the money for her health or how I was controlling her. I wanted to scream at her, "You lied and cheated, and now you're trying to spin it as if I'm the bad guy." But I kept my cool. I knew I had to be smart if I wanted to win this fight. Every day I felt more exhausted, more betrayed. But I also knew I couldn't let her get away with it. Not this time. I had to be relentless. I kept pushing forward, gathering more evidence, pushing my lawyer to be aggressive. I wanted her to pay for what she'd done, not just financially, but emotionally. I was done trusting her, done being the naive husband who believed the best in her. I was waking up to the reality that some people are just selfish, manipulative, and destructive. In the end, I knew this was just the beginning of a long fight, but I was determined. I wasn't going to let her steal my life, my money, or my future. I had to stand tall, no matter how much it hurt. Because if I didn't fight now, I'd never get the chance again. And honestly, I just want her to realize she can't keep lying and cheating her way out of what she did. That's what keeps me going, knowing I'm fighting for what's right, even if the road ahead looks dark. The court battles dragged on, and every day felt like a test of patience and resolve. Lisa kept up her act, pretending to be the innocent victim, crying, pleading, and spinning stories about how she deserved the house because she worked so hard. Meanwhile, I was buried in paperwork, forensic reports, and depositions. The more I uncovered, the more obvious it became that her entire story was a lie. She'd been draining our accounts for years, hiding money offshore and lying about her expenses. It was like discovering a second, darker life she'd been living behind my back. What really pushed me over the edge was the discovery of her secret bank accounts. Hidden in her name but completely separate from ours, she'd been funneling money into them for years. I found statements showing hundreds of thousands of dollars transferred over the last 5 years. She'd been planning this escape long before I ever suspected. It wasn't just about the affair or the money she'd taken. It was about her entire betrayal of everything we built together. I remember the day I first saw her bank statements. I was sitting at my desk, going through the forensic accountant's report, and my stomach sank. There it was, monthly transfers, thousands of dollars, all in her name, completely unaccounted for in our joint accounts. It explained how she'd been living beyond her means, buying expensive clothes, luxury spa days, and even trips abroad, all paid for with money I thought was shared. That feeling of being duped, of being used, was overwhelming. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut all over again. The legal fight was brutal. Lisa's lawyer was good, aggressive, and knew how to spin her lies. She claimed she was the victim, that I was controlling and abusive, and that I had no right to question her finances. She even tried to turn the court against me, saying I was a bad father and that I was trying to ruin her reputation. It infuriated me because I knew the truth. I had the evidence, and I was determined to make her pay for all the lies and theft. I also started to push harder on the custody issue. I wanted my kid, and I wanted to make sure Lisa couldn't manipulate the system to keep him away from me. She was playing the victim card, crying in court, claiming she needed full custody because I was unstable and dangerous. The irony was sickening. She was the one living a double life, stealing from us and lying to everyone. Yet she looked so convincing, so fragile, that it almost made me question myself. Almost. Every hearing was a roller coaster. One day she'd be crying and claiming she loved our child more than anything. Then the next, she'd be spinning tales about how I was abusive or controlling. I couldn't believe how far she'd go to manipulate the court system. It was exhausting, emotionally and mentally. I kept thinking, how did I miss all this? How did I not see the signs of her deception earlier? Meanwhile, I was working with the forensic accountants to trace every dollar she'd stolen. The numbers kept climbing, over $200, $0 now. She'd been funneling money into secret accounts, making transfers, and even taking cash out at ATMs abroad. It was like she'd built a whole covert empire behind my back. The betrayal was so deep that I started questioning everything I'd thought about her, about us. Was she even the same woman I married? Or was she just a con artist pretending to be my wife? The hardest part was seeing her lie to the court with such conviction, pretending to be innocent. She'd look into the judge's eyes and spin her tales of hardship and victimhood. Meanwhile, I had the receipts, the screenshots, the bank statements, all proving her guilt. It felt like I was fighting not just for money or custody, but for my very sanity. How could someone I loved turn into this manipulative, deceitful person? It was a question I still wrestle with every day. One night, after a long day in court, I sat alone in my house, feeling drained and defeated. I looked around at the life I'd built, now shattered. The house, the savings, even the trust I had in myself. I started to realize that this was more than just a legal fight. It was a battle for my future, my dignity, and my sanity. Lisa had tried to destroy everything I cared about, but I refused to let her win. I knew I had to stay strong, keep fighting. I reached out to a financial investigator to help me build a case for the court. We worked tirelessly, tracing every dollar, uncovering even more hidden accounts. I also started documenting everything, every call, every message, every lie she told. I wanted the court to see the full picture. I wasn't just fighting over money. I was fighting to prove her deception and reclaim what was rightfully mine. Looking back, I realize how much this whole ordeal has changed me. I used to trust blindly, believe in the best in people. Now, I see the world differently. I know that some betrayals run so deep that they shake your core. But I also learned that, even in the darkest moments, you have to fight for yourself. You have to stand up even if it feels like the entire system is against you. Because if you don't, who will? So I keep pushing forward. Every court date, every piece of evidence, every lie she tells, I see it all as part of the process. I'm not just fighting for my money or my kid. I'm fighting to prove that I was blindsided by someone I loved, and now I have to take back my life. It's not easy, and honestly, some days I want to give up. But then I remember how much she's hurt me, how much she's lied, and I know I can't let her get away with it. Not this time. The court proceedings became a blur of motions, depositions, and legal battles. Every day I felt like I was fighting not just her, but also the system that seemed to sometimes favor her manipulations. Lisa kept up her act, feigning innocence and victimhood, but I had more proof now than I knew what to do with. The forensic accountants had uncovered even more accounts, some hidden in offshore banks, others disguised under fake names. She'd been planning her escape for years, and I was just catching up to mess. I remember sitting in the courtroom listening to her lawyer spin her stories, trying to paint her as the wronged wife who just wanted a fresh start. It made me sick to my stomach. I had to sit there silent, knowing all the lies she was telling. I had my own witnesses, my evidence, and the truth on my side. But knowing that didn't make it any easier to see her acting so innocent, so fragile. I knew better. She was a master manipulator, and she was working hard to keep her secrets hidden. One of the most infuriating moments came when she claimed she needed the house because she was the primary caregiver for our kid. She said I was unstable and that I'd been emotionally abusive, which was a flat-out lie. I had never raised my voice at her, never hit her, never even threatened her. But she knew how to spin a story that made her look like the victim, and the court sometimes fell for it. That's when I realized I had to bring in witnesses, friends, family, anyone who could testify that I was a good father and a stable person. Meanwhile, she continued to lie and manipulate behind the scenes. I found out she'd been borrowing money from friends, secretly transferring funds into new accounts, even forging documents to hide her assets. It was like she'd turned into a professional con artist, and I was only just catching up. Every new discovery made me angrier, more determined to get justice. I knew I couldn't let her walk away with everything, especially after all the lying and stealing. The emotional toll was brutal. Some nights I'd lie awake replaying everything, her betrayal, her lies, her manipulations. I felt like I'd been hit so many times I was just about to break. But I also knew I had to stay strong for myself and for my kid. I started seeing a therapist, trying to put the pieces back together. It helped a little, but the pain of betrayal lingered. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone cold, calculating, and willing to do anything to get what she wanted. What made it worse was the legal system's sometimes slow and frustrating pace. I'd get a new piece of evidence, bring it to court, only to have her lawyer drag things out or dismiss it. It felt like a never-ending battle, and I was constantly on edge. I'd spend hours preparing, only to have her come back with some new lie or tactic to throw me off. It was exhausting, mentally and emotionally. I started questioning whether I'd ever get my life back, but I refused to give up. I kept pushing, kept fighting, because I knew that if I didn't, she'd get away with everything. I worked with my lawyer to prepare a full financial report, every penny she'd stolen, every account she'd hidden, every offshore transfer. We also filed for an equitable division of assets, making sure the court understood the full extent of her deception. It was a long shot, but I had to try. I owed it to myself to fight for what was rightfully mine. Through it all, I kept reminding myself of what this was really about. It wasn't just money or custody. It was about justice. About proving that I wasn't some gullible fool who got played. That I was a man who loved and trusted, only to be betrayed in the worst way. And I wanted her to see, deep down, that her lies had consequences. that her manipulations could keep her from paying for her actions. Some days I felt like giving up. The weight of everything, her lies, the betrayal, the legal battles, was almost too much. But then I'd look at my kid's face and I'd remember why I was doing this. For him, for my own dignity, for the truth. I knew I'd come out of this stronger even if it took years. Because no matter how deep her deception ran, I was determined to fight until I got justice. Now I'm still in the thick of it. Court date is looming, and I know she'll do everything she can to manipulate the system again. But I've learned a lot from this experience about trust, betrayal, and resilience. I've learned that some people are just wired differently and you can't fix everyone. But you can stand up for yourself. You can fight for what's right. And even if it feels like the world is against you, you keep pushing. Because at the end of the day, you have to look in the mirror and know you stood for yourself when it mattered most. The final court hearing was supposed to be the culmination of everything I'd fought for. But even then, I knew the battle wasn't fully over. Lisa's lawyer pulled out all the stops, trying to spin her as the victim once again, claiming I was trying to ruin her reputation and that I had no right to question her finances. She sat there, looking calm and composed, as if she hadn't spent years secretly stealing from us, cheating on me and manipulating every aspect of our lives. When the judge finally called for the verdict, I felt a strange mixture of anxiety and relief. The judge took his time reviewing all the evidence, my forensic accountant's reports, the bank statements, witness testimonies, before finally delivering his decision. It was a moment I'd been waiting for, a moment when the truth was going to come out in full force. And it did. The court ordered Lisa to return the full amount she'd stolen, over $200, $0, and awarded me primary custody of our child. The judge also made it clear that her manipulative tactics and financial deception had severely impacted her credibility. I could see her trying to maintain her composure, but I knew that deep down, she was furious because she had lost control. She'd been trying to manipulate her way out of this entire mess, but the truth had finally caught up with her. As I left the courtroom, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, but also a deep sense of emptiness. The betrayal had changed me forever. I'd learned that trust is fragile, and some people are capable of destroying everything you hold dear for their own gain. I looked at my kid, who was safely with me now, and I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I'd fought for him, for myself, and for the truth. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about reclaiming my life from the chaos she had created. In the months that followed, I worked hard to rebuild what was broken. I filed the necessary paperwork to recover the stolen funds, and I started the process of healing emotionally. It wasn't easy. There were days when I felt like giving up, days when the betrayal still cut too deep. But I knew I had to keep moving forward. I had learned the hard way that trusting blindly can be dangerous, and that sometimes the only way to protect yourself is to fight back with everything you've got. Looking back, I realize that this experience has shaped me in ways I never expected. I've become more cautious, more guarded, but also more aware of the importance of honesty and integrity. I've learned that revenge isn't just about getting what's owed. It's about reclaiming your dignity and making sure the truth comes out, no matter how uncomfortable it might be. I hope anyone reading this who's dealing with similar betrayal understands one thing. You're not alone, and you don't have to accept being a victim. Stand up, gather your evidence, and fight for yourself. Because in the end, the truth will always come out, and justice, no matter how long it takes, will prevail. And as for me, I'm finally beginning to rebuild my life, stronger, wiser, and more cautious than ever. The pain of betrayal will never fully disappear, but it's made me realize what really matters. Trust is earned, not given, and sometimes the only way to truly find peace is to face the storm head-on and come out the other side.